Prof. Ngaba.
Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Nana Poku, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural lecture of Professor Sinegugu Duma. To the Registrar, Dr. Kathy Cleland, the members of Council, the members of Executive Management who may be here, the members of Senate, the members of the college, our inaugurant this afternoon, Professor Sinegugu Duma, family and friends of Professor Sinegugu Duma, academics and professional staff, as well as members of the nursing profession at large, students, alumni, and distinguished guests. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. A special welcome to our guests from the universities and organizations within South Africa, the African continent, and across the globe. As already mentioned, my name is Professor Busingama, and it really is my pleasure to welcome all of you today on behalf of the university. I think it's also very special for me because Professor Duma and I come from the same school, and we are also serving in leadership together. Inaugural lectures form part of the university's public lecture series and may only be presented by newly appointed full professors who've been appointed in academic schools and centers. Inaugural lectures present an opportunity for showcasing the exciting and groundbreaking research and teaching that is being carried out by professors of our university. Each lecture represents a significant milestone in an academic's career, providing official recognition of their promotion or appointment to full professorship. These lectures are furthermore an ideal opportunity to new professors to introduce themselves and to present an overview of their own contribution to their field to academic peers, students, and research collaborators. Inaugural lectures are also a platform for celebrating a professor's academic achievements with his or her family, friends, mentors, and colleagues. Distinguished guests, it's my pleasure, therefore, to now introduce the Dean and Head of School of Nursing and Public Health, Professor Anna Vosher, who will now formally introduce the inaugurant, Professor Sinegugu Duma. Thank you.
Good afternoon, DVC and distinguished guests. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to introduce to you the inaugurant, Professor Sinegugu Duma, on what is undoubtedly an auspicious milestone in her academic journey. Professor Duma is a full professor in the discipline of nursing in the School of Nursing and Public Health in the College of Health Sciences. Professor Duma received a diploma in nursing from the Natal College of Nursing in 1990 and was duly awarded the Durban City Council Award for the overall best student nurse in general nursing. In 1995, she obtained a BCo in nursing education and nursing administration from the University of South Africa. In 1998, she obtained a master's in nursing education from the University of then Natal. In 2006, she was awarded a PhD degree in nursing from the University of Cape Town. She also has a certificate in sexual assault forensic nursing from the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing in Baltimore, USA. Professor Duma received a staff credentialing scholarship from the South African Medical Council for her postgraduate studies at the Johns Hopkins University and a Tutuga scholarship from the National Research Foundation for her PhD study at the University of Cape Town. Professor Duma started her professional nursing career at King Edward VIII, now Victoria Mlenge Hospital, in 1990, and she started her academic career as a nurse tutor at the Montebello School of Nursing in 1995. In 1998, she joined the Institute for Nursing at the then University of Natal as a lecturer and coordinator of the decentralized nursing program. In 2001, she joined the University of Cape Town in the Faculty of Health Sciences, where she later became associate professor and head of the Division for Nursing and Midwifery. In April 2017, she joined the College of Health Sciences at UKZN as Dean for Teaching and Learning, a role that she currently fulfills. She was promoted to full professor in 2021. Professor Duma's research focus is on improving the health outcomes for victims and survivors of sexual violence and on the prevention of gender-based violence in different settings. She has translated her research findings through the development of nurse-led clinical forensic nursing practice guidelines and was instrumental in the formal recognition by the South African Nursing Council of clinical forensic nursing as a nursing qualification. She was entered into the Hall of Fame for Research Excellence in Nursing in 2016 and was inducted as a fellow in the Academy of Nursing South Africa in recognition of her contribution to nursing research, to nursing education, and to advancing nursing practice in the field of sexual and gender-based violence in South Africa. Through her postgraduate supervision, she has developed throughout the continent a cohort of gender-based violence nurse researchers and clinical sexual assault forensic nurse practitioners. She has successfully graduated 30 postgraduate students across all disciplines in health sciences, including 10 PhD graduates. She's currently supervising 12 PhD students, is a mentor to one postdoctoral fellow and to many emerging academics, both at UKZN and other South African universities. Professor Duma has published 60 research articles in accredited national and international journals covering gender-based violence, health sciences education, and nursing practice. She has also published peer-reviewed book chapters on nursing practice, nursing education, and clinical forensic nursing practice. And she's the sole author of a book entitled The Pain of Being a Woman, an in-depth research on recovery from sexual assault trauma. Professor Duma has made a number of professional contributions that attest to her standing in the discipline of nursing. She has examined a number of postgraduate dissertations and theses. She's on the editorial board for Curationists, for the Africa Journal of Nursing and Midwifery, for South Africa Health Gesondheid, and for Indilinga. She has served as a reviewer for many high-impact journals. She has been invited as a speaker to a number of international and national conferences with a focus on advancing forensic nursing science and practice. She has been a visiting professor at different international universities, including the School of Nursing at Johns Hopkins University, Jönköping University in Sweden, and Great Lakes University of Kisumu in Kenya. She has been a panel member and a reviewer of research grant proposals for the National Research Foundation, the South African Medical Research Council, and the UK Medical Research Council. She was an international advisory board member for the International Association of Forensic Nurses from 2010 to 2013, and she's currently serving as an advisory board member for the School of Nursing at the University of Free State. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure this afternoon to invite Professor Duma to deliver her inaugural lecture, which is entitled Navigating the Uncharted Territories in Gender-Based Violence, Transforming Nursing Scholarship and Practice.
Thank you, Professor Boshe, and thank you, Professor Ngama, for the introductions. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is exactly 1 year since we laid my dear mother to rest on the 28th of October, 2023. She was so looking forward to my inaugural lecture, which would have been presented on the 8th of November, 2023. The only consolation is that her last few days on earth were filled with her anticipation and excitement about the then upcoming lecture on the positive outcomes of my sister Fundisiwe's proposal defense at one of the local universities. My mother was genuinely interested in the education of all her children and had special ways to show us her support. For instance, when I was writing my doctoral thesis in Cape Town, she came and stayed with me for 3 months to ensure that I was eating well and also getting some rest. That were her own words. I did not know or appreciate the extent to which my mom and dad were interested in my doctoral studies until the day I received, until the day I received a special gift from my dad. Excuse me, is it sharing? Yeah. I did not know or appreciate how my parents were interested in my doctoral studies until I received a special gift from my dad. This gift came wrapped nicely in a newspaper with instructions in his handwriting, the instructions about how to assemble it and how much paraffin to put in it. This was during the time when the country was experiencing for the first time the long load shedding, the long electricity outages, which later become known as load shedding. It remains a special and priceless treasure because of its significance and meaning to me. I'm sharing this information because we always hear that first generation students lack parental support. Fortunately for me and my siblings, that was not the case. Although my parents did not have university degree education, they were always there to support us through their prayers and everything else they could do to be practical in their support. I'm going to share with you the journey I traversed during the time when there were no nurses who were doing research in gender-based violence or forensic nurses. I'm going to do this by sharing with you the first victim of sexual violence, who became an inspiration to the work that I've been doing for all these years. And I'm also going to talk about why I opted for qualitative research to do my work and in sexual violence. I will also talk about the original research that provided me with theoretical foundations of what I do. And I will also talk about the current and future sexual violence prevention research that I do. I will conclude with the future of forensic nursing in South Africa. I always use the slide before I present my work because of its traumatic and sensitive nature. It sometimes triggers some emotions to people who listen to it. I will also be talking about the work that I do with my students and collaborators. However, I want to apologize to those colleagues whose work and students whose work I will not mention. It's because time is not on our side for me to share all the work that we do together. This is where all started between 1986 to 1989, when I trained as a student nurse in King Edward, the 8th Hospital, or Natal College of Nursing. It was one rainy Saturday morning. I remember it so well. When I got into the casualty department to start my duties as a student nurse, I met with this woman. She was put in the side ward or a cubicle, and she had the most weird and anti-nursing doctor's orders I have had in my 1.5 years as a student nurse. These orders were: do not feed, do not allow her to brush her teeth, do not allow her to bath. She is awaiting district surgery. This was something new to me. I have been already in the surgical wards and in the surgical theater. However, I have not heard anything about district surgery. So I started imagining who this doctor could be. Throughout that morning, as I continued with my activities as a young junior student nurse, I kept going back to check on the patient and see how she was doing. By lunchtime, I went in and sat down with her. I noticed that she had been crying and her face was a mess, and her hair were like she had been dragged, were full of debris, as if she had been dragged on the ground. She voluntarily shared with me that she was one of the university students from a local university. She thought she had been raped. She didn't know how she had resulted in the hospital. She had landed in hospital. Just as I was trying to unplug some of the debris from her head, trying to comfort her, a registered nurse who was in charge of the unit came in and ushered me out of that cubicle. She then told me I was destroying forensic evidence, something again that was anti-nursing to me. I asked her what she meant. She did not explain too much. Instead, she offered me an afternoon off and said I must just go and rest in the nurse's home and not come back for the rest of the afternoon. I was happy with the generosity of being given an afternoon to myself. I spent that whole afternoon and the rest of Sunday going through every book that was at my disposal to look for information on forensic evidence, district surgeon, as well as the nursing care of the victim, because it sounded weird that I was not supposed to feed or bath or allow her to brush her teeth. On Monday, the following week, I went straight to Mrs. Mkize, who was our mother tutor. That's what we used to call them those days, but the lecturer. I informed her about my frustrations, including the experience that I had with the registered nurse who didn't tell me anything but sent me away, but also how I failed to find information on forensic evidence or district surgeon and the nursing care. She literally took me to medical school library and introduced me to the librarian and told her and asked her to assist me with the information that I could not get in the small library in the nursing college. I spent the whole evening until the library was almost to be closed, looking at everything that I could get on forensic medicine. There were pictures of patients with injuries, there were autopsies, there were dead patients. Unfortunately, there was nothing about the care of a victim of sexual violence. I went back to Mrs. Mkiza the following day and told her about my frustration again. Instead, she encouraged me to go and to further my studies so that later on I could develop a nursing curriculum on response to sexual violence. I'm forever grateful to Mrs. Mkize for having instilled that love to me, and inspiring me to study further. Unfortunately, over the years, I lost contact with her. I would have loved for her to be here today so that I could dedicate this lecture to her. I later learned that the reason why I could not find anything on nursing care of sexual violence patients was because there was nothing. Forensic nursing was first defined by Virginia Lynch and the American Academy of Forensic Science in 1991. In South Africa, it was only in 2012 that the amended National Health Act 61 of 2003 defined and authorized a nurse or a professional nurse who is registered with the South African Nursing Council, to be trained in clinical forensic medicine, to do forensic examination, take forensic evidence for investigation, and provide counseling and testing to the victims of sexual violence. Although there was something about the nurse, it did not say anything about clinical forensic medicine. They still needed to be trained on clinical forensic medicine. I share this story because I want to talk about the value of clinical placement of students, of health science students, of health science students. It brings in, or it helps with the development of clinical skills. It also allows them to have self-discovery learning, but more importantly, especially for me, it helped in instilling the love for research or the research interest. I want to talk about the research, why I tend to qualitative research in gender-based violence and sexual violence research. We all know that gender-based violence, including sexual violence, is a serious problem affecting the safety, dignity, health, and well-being of millions of individuals, especially women and children around the globe. GBV and sexual violence interferes with the survivor's physical, emotional, and social functioning. However, this cannot be measured quantitatively only. So I tend to qualitative research because qualitative research allows researchers to gather detailed personal narratives from survivors about their ordeal and trauma during rape. Victims' voices can provide an in-depth understanding of the effects of sexual violence on individuals and their families and their communities. In my case, the victims then became co-creators of new knowledge in our understanding of sexual violence and its health impact and recovery. Because I wanted to acknowledge the participants as co-creators of knowledge on sexual violence, I wrote this article in one of the nursing journals. The title of the article was Legitimate Agents of Knowledge, Who Are They? In this article, I was stressing the importance of Black women's voices in informing research and what is published about their experiences and their bodies, especially because my participants used weight gain as healing of the heart instead of seeing it as an eating disorder that follows after sexual assault as indicated by the Western literature. They also spoke about the value of community support and community mobilization in their journey of recovery. This led me to thinking seriously about decolonizing the curriculum, something for another day. Now I want to talk about the original research that informed everything that I've been doing for the past 3 decades. This research was supervised by the late Professor Lynette Denny, a renowned sexual and reproductive health expert, and Professor Julia Nobelungu Mekwa, who is a renowned qualitative nurse researcher, both from the University of Cape Town. I was also fortunate to be mentored and be introduced to pedagogy informing gender-based violence and sexual violence, as well as forensic nursing by Professor Jackie Campbell and Professor Daniel Sheridan, respectively, at the university, at Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing. Talking about the original research that I did, it was, of course, for my PhD. It was a longitudinal study which followed 10 women over a period of 12 months from the first week of being sexually assaulted. It looked at exploring what sexual violence does to a victim. It also looked at if and how victims heal or recover from sexual violence trauma, and the conditions or the environment that promotes or hinder healing or recovery from such trauma. Also looked at the immediate and long-term health needs of the victims of sexual violence. The whole idea was to keep to the promise I made to Mrs. Mkhize to develop a nursing curriculum in response to sexual violence. The picture that you see is the findings that came from the voices of these women. And I'm going to talk more about it in the next slides. But it indicated from the time they were traumatized to the time when they realized that they have been raped, and to the time when they decide, which is the turning point, whether they want to, whether they are going to heal because they are in a supportive environment, or whether they keep getting the flashbacks to the initial sexual violence trauma, and which could be due to non-protective environment, and also reclaiming what was lost as a way of defining their own landmarks and readiness to closure, and then returning to self as their way of healing. I remember reading the external examiners report. They all said this was a groundbreaking, this research was a groundbreaker because it was aligned to the nursing theories, and it was looking at both the patient, the nursing, the environment, and the health, starting from that red bulb, which is about what the patient experiences, up to the time when the patient is healing, that is returning to self. However, for the purpose of this lecture, I'm just going to focus on the two stages: the stage where the victim experiences mental paralysis and is unable to move, lies there emotionless and not knowing what to do and losing all the control, to the second stage, which is on selective disclosure and all those behaviors, where she first realizes that she has been raped and starts looking for help, and not knowing whether to comply or not to comply with what is being proposed by the health professionals or police to her. However, my aha moment came when I kept on looking at the meaning of what my patients were saying in terms of mental paralysis and looking at the causes of mental paralysis. I discovered that there were a number of regions in the brain that get traumatized or that get affected when one is traumatized. The first one being the amygdala, which perceives the threat and sends the information to all these other parts of the body, including the hippocampus, which affects our memory as well as our whole emotional response to things that are happening to us. And the adrenal cortex, which also secretes corticosteroid, as well as the anterior pituitary gland. The cocktail of the hormones that get released in excess result in the shutdown or freeze, or what I termed mental paralysis, and then later learned that it has a name: tonic immobility or thanatosis. I will just try and explain the picture that I had given in the previous slide by indicating what each of these cocktail hormones do to the body for a person during trauma. The first hormone that I want to talk about is adrenaline. Excuse me. Adrenaline arouses you to your circumstances, like, I am being attacked, I need to do something. And then the second hormone that I want to talk about is cortisol, which provides you with uncommon energy that you can use to either fight or flee. And then the next hormone is the opioids. The opioids, they act like morphine. They are provided to temporarily numb your pain during the ordeal. The last but very important hormone is oxytocin, which we sometimes call the bliss hormone. This hormone is common among women when they give birth, because it's meant to help them to bond with their newborn. However, during rape, it is secreted or it's released in excess, and its job is to attempt to stabilize the emotions. Unfortunately, just like it provides the bonding between the mother and the child, in this case, it can also provide some bonding with the rapist, because it gives you some romantic attachment, which becomes a problem for the victims because they start doubting themselves and why they felt the way they felt towards the person who was hurting them. For the first time, we understood why victims behave the way they behave, why they have trouble recalling the attack chronologically, why they come with an affect or a blank face with no emotions, or sometimes smile or laugh inappropriately while they are talking about their ordeal, why they are sometimes slow in answering and having these anger bursts, why sometimes they take long to answer, which then throws some shroud of doubt in our mind and thinking that maybe she's creating the story, and why they sometimes feel so guilty for failing to protect themselves, but more importantly, for starting to have some connections with the rapist, which is something that we then start to say as nurses or health professionals, as well as police. They are giving us incoherent statements, therefore they are lying. These findings had a number of implications for practice, but more importantly, I want to talk about the implications for the survivor, because she needs to understand what's happening to them. Our job is to reassure them that this is normal experience. Mental paralysis or tonic immobility is normal, and tell them what its causes and just give it a name so that they leave knowing why they couldn't protect themselves. For the legal system and first responders, this is no time for interrogations, but time for listening and avoiding questions that show that you doubt the story that is being told, which sometimes leads to what we call secondary victimization. For us as health practitioners, this is the time to give the victim time to collect and consolidate her thoughts, because everything has been disrupted in her mind. Then allow her to find the missing pieces of the puzzle in her own without interrogating her, and assure her that tonic immobility or thanatosis is a normal response. Give it a name, give it a diagnosis. How the original research transformed nursing practice. I went and worked in partnership with the Western Cape Department of Health, especially Dr. Chungu, UCT's Division of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology, especially Professor Lorna Martin, Dr. Itumeleng Molife. We developed a 6-month short course in sexual assault forensic nursing, which prepared nurses who later managed some of the key Tutuzela care centers in Western Cape. Tutuzela care centers are the facilities that specifically look after rape victims. At the time, 30 sexual assault forensic nurses were trained. The good thing about these nurses was that prosecutors and magistrates in Western Cape preferred the documents prepared by these nurses and forensic evidence collected by these nurses, and they said they were clear and meticulous. They became the best expert and factual witnesses in terms of sexual violence. The reason why I highlighted the doctors here is because I want to stress the importance of working with medical doctors in advancing forensic nursing in this country. In 2016, I received an award and was entered in the Hall of Fame for Research Excellence in Nursing. Prior to that, in 2013, I was nominated and inducted as a fellow in the Academy for Nursing in South Africa, ANSA. Both of these were in recognition of translating nursing research findings into nursing practice, transforming the nursing care of victims of crime and violence. Transforming nursing education. In 2013, I co-founded South African Forensic Nursing Association in partnership with some nurses and doctors who care about victims of gender-based violence. We partnered with the South African Nursing Council to develop competencies for clinical forensic nursing. That was a first step towards recognition of forensic nursing as a qualification in South Africa. Forensic nursing is now formally recognized as a postgraduate diploma in nursing in South Africa. Again, I stress the importance of a number of doctors, especially Dr. Seki Naidu, Steve Naidu, and Dr. Elstrom, as doctors who assisted in the formation of the South African Forensic Nursing Association, but also the advancing of forensic nursing in this country. We call them the Friends of SAFNA. This slide is just highlighting in reality that forensic nursing is indeed now one of the postgraduate diplomas that are approved or that are approved by the South African Nursing Council. And the other picture is just about the clinical competencies or the level outcomes for postgraduate diploma in forensic nursing, having been informed by the work that SAFNA, in partnership with SAFNA, with SANC, did. I want to talk about how I use the original research to transform the nursing scholarship. I'll start by the work of one of my PhD graduates, Dr. Evelyn or Evalo van Wyk. She looked at the experiences of partners of female rape victims and later developed a framework to support these partners, bringing in a mental health nursing perspective. Another student of mine who is currently at UKZN, the first one was at UCT, this one is at UKZN. She's exploring the occurrence of tonic immobility, the so-called mental paralysis among Nigerian nurses, focusing on the actual time it occurs and whether there's a difference in response if it occurred before, during, or after the incidence of rape, so that we can then develop appropriate nursing care interventions. The third one is Mr. Siabulela Eric Mgolozeli, who is exploring male rape victimization and the health services response to male rape victimization. I'm happy to announce that he received an award as an emerging researcher at the SRVI conference just last week. He and together with Dushima, they should be submitting for their PhD sometime soon this year. Among these three students, about 15 publications in Q1 journals have come out, and all of them all their work emanated from the first original research. They looked at the recommendations and they came up with the titles. Of course, other research came after this, including which were self-initiated and funded by NRF. I can't pass this picture. I don't know how it got passed. This picture, it's my dad and his cousin brother, Dr. Mfuniselwa Bengu. Dr. Mfuniselwa Bengu accompanied me to one of the seminars I was presenting at UCT All Africa House. And I presented my work on the women's journey of recovery from sexual assault. After listening to the talk, he asked for the whole copy of the PhD. He read the whole copy of the PhD and came back and recommended that I write a book, and he gave the title of the book, The Pain of Being a Woman, and he sourced even the cover. His idea was that this work should be shared with men in particular, so that they can understand the pain they inflict on women. During his last week, 2 weeks before he passed on, he came with the last batch and still reminded me about my responsibility towards men with regard to helping them understand. I'm sharing this email. It may not be clear to all of you, but I'm sharing it to show the international and non-academic reach that this work has made. This is a person who this is a journalist who is writing an article or who is writing a book on victim behavior. She has reached out to me to know more about mental paralysis. The second one, which is a little bit clearer, was also a journalist who was looking at writing for a magazine, and she was asking again to get information. And I hope they are both here, or one of them is here today. This is just to indicate how much the work has gone beyond just South Africa. Now I want to go on and talk about sexual violence prevention research in higher education institutions. Being a warden at UCT, in one of the female residences at UCT, provided me with opportunities to observe sexual violence among students and also opportunities for sexual violence prevention research. In that research, we identified some of the hotspots for GBV or sexual violence. We also identified certain times when violence was perpetrated. We also identified faculties with high GBV between lecturers and students. But more importantly, I was then appointed by the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Max Price, to establish the Sexual Assault Response Team, which was the first such response to GBV in South African universities. Among other things that SAT did was providing accessible and confidential reporting of sexual violence. We also analyzed and provided monthly statistics and reports of GBV on campus to the Vice Chancellor and the university community. We reviewed and simplified policies and procedures for responding to sexual violence. And there was an increase in reporting because it was now safe to do so. And that made other people to worry if all we were doing were just generating sexual violence statistics. However, our explanation that it was because now it was safe for people to come and report. Another thing that happened at UCT during that, because of that, of SAT, there was we provided accessible and accurate information on what to do when you have been raped. We also provided information on preservation of forensic evidence. And we also made sure that there was justice for victims. For instance, alleged perpetrators were removed immediately from the same, if they were sharing the same residence. And there was also improved university response to GBV. This picture that I have on the side, I took it in 2019 when I was participating at the Teaching and Learning Conference at UCT. I found this on their bathrooms, and I went from first to the last bathroom checking, and I found that this information was provided. And I was happy because this was the work that I had produced for the university at the time, together with, of course, the team members that I was working. Now, transforming scholarship in sexual violence prevention research has also been something that I've been doing. The first student in terms of sexual violence prevention research was Dr. Tanya de Villiers, who is now the head of the Division of Nursing and Midwifery at UCT. She explored the role of male student leaders in the prevention of gender-based violence, especially sexual violence on campus. She later developed a model known as Men with Conscience as an intervention to prevent sexual violence in a South African university. Another student is Agatha Omekefe from Nigeria. She looked at the risk and protective factors for dating violence among university students in Nigeria. They have both published Omekefe has published Female Students' Perceptions of Interpersonal Risk and Protective Factors, and Dr. de Villiers has also published an article in a Q1 journal titled, As Young Men, We Have a Role to Play in Preventing Sexual Violence, Development and Relevance of Men with Conscious Intervention to Prevent Sexual Violence. And they are continuing in the same space as we speak. My other work, or my current work in sexual violence prevention, I am a member of the SABVET, or the Sub-Saharan African University Gender-Based Violence Prevention and Response Team. We are a group of 9 African universities and 1 university in the United States, Michigan University. Our work as a network is looking at collaborative research for a violence-free higher education in sub-Saharan Africa. We have produced a number of, we've analyzed policies in all these participating universities and have published at least about 5 articles, and we are continuing in this. I am also a member of a South African Medical Research Council team, which is known as Ntombi Vibela. The study is to build resistance for prevention of mental health problems associated with gender-based violence. And in terms of forensic nursing, I'm continuing and I'm working with the National Task Team that was appointed by the Fundisa, which is a forum for nursing departments in South Africa, in the development of PG, postgraduate diploma in clinical forensic nursing. The last picture is just indicating the work that I'm doing with other people in co-creating research agenda to address gender-based violence in higher education institutions. There are too many people that I want to list and thank, but I'm just grateful to everyone who has been part of this journey and contributed to who I am today. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Duma. Thank you very much, Prof. Duma, for the presentation. I would like to extend a word of sincere gratitude to Professor Sinegugu Duma for sharing her journey as a researcher, where and how it all started, including the support that she has received from her late parents. Wherever they are, I'm sure they are very proud of you. Your lecture took us through the personal and professional and academic journey, including your learned trials and tribulations. You also took us through all the people that have contributed to your career. We are very happy that today we're able to celebrate this special milestone with you. Special thanks to all teachers who instill, teachers and lecturers who instill an inquiring mind among their students, such as the case of Mrs. Mkhize. And most importantly, thank you to you, Prof. Duma, for identifying injustices around you and deciding to take them on and research them. Your journey has been very inspirational. You also shared with us how you engaged with the science, the different studies, the methodologies that you used, and how. You took us through the neurobiological explanations for behavior that follows sexual violence and the effects of hormones on the responses that we end up seeing on survivors of sexual violence. You also showed us how this has been applied over time. The output of your work was a short course that preferred the staff that later managed the Thuthuzela care centers. And you shared with us how you have developed this forensic nursing as a specialty, and how the South African Nursing Council has now recognized it as a specialty. This clearly demonstrates evidence-based practice, which should not just be there, but should add human value as well. I would like to thank the family and friends of Professor Sinegugu Duma and all of those who have supported you in this journey as a researcher and a scientist. A special thanks to the audiovisual staff and corporate relations for all the logistical arrangements. And lastly, I want to thank all the attendees. Thank you to all of you for gracing this lecture with your presence. It is much appreciated. Once again, thank you, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much, and goodbye.